Hello everyone, this is Philip, and today I'm covering topic 4.21, which is the last topic of AP African American Studies, I believe. And what it's on is on Afrofuturism and Black Studies as a whole. So I think this is probably one of the more interesting topics, as I've never heard of Afrofuturism before until I started looking into it because of this project. But basically what it says is just rejecting systems of oppression that have held Black people down, and so do Black Studies. So this is kind of reimagining what a future without oppression can look like. So we're going to look at two learning objectives. So we're going to explore how the discipline of African American Studies has contributed to interdisciplinary academic studies. Number two, we'll explore how Afrofuturism envisions Black lives in future environments.
So, what is Afrofuturism? So, the definition isn't really too clear when you try to search it up on Google, but at least my interpretation is what the future can look like when you're allowed to imagine beyond your limits. So, a lot of that obviously has to include technology, AI, stuff like that, but there's so much more that goes into it, and it's more than just it's more than just escapism. It's really rooted in real life experiences, and there's ways to see it beyond just medias like Black Panther, like music videos. So I think a better way to think about it is a way to reimagine how Black people are perceived. So often we think of Black history, we think of oppression. Afrofuturism basically denying that. It's saying we can move beyond that through different methods such as literature, film, fashion, etc. And, you can see right there, he's got the whole fit on. I don't know what that is, but, pretty cool. So, some modern representations are Black Panther, obviously. The basic premise behind Black Panther and how it connects to Afrofuturism is that Wakanda is a kingdom that hasn't really been touched by colonialism. And it's basically imagining a world where an African kingdom really has all the technology over even, major Western countries and over colonial powers. So because of that, it's reimagining a future where African Americans are the key contributors to the world in terms of tech, science, innovation, all of that stuff. And then Blade, I think one of my friends has watched it. I forgot what it was about, but pretty sure it's set in a futuristic world with Blade, his character. Yeah, I'm not sure. Someone should tell me.
Okie dokie. And when it comes to the earliest examples of Afrofuturism, so by, earliest examples, we're talking about Afrofuturism as a concept, but not a fully fleshed out idea just yet, not until the 1970s. So we're going to talk about Phyllis Wheatley and Benjamin Banneker. So Phyllis Wheatley, as we know, I think we've read one of her poems. She is the first published African American poet, very smart, an incredible, literary genius. But the main thing with her is a lot of her poems have a lot to do with her current time. So, that's during the era of slavery. And kind of imagining a future without slavery. What can Black people accomplish when we don't have, those chains surrounding us. And then Benjamin Banneker, he's an astrologer and mathematician. He kind of just, really smart dude, but he observed the stars, I think. I'm not even sure what he did, but he observed the stars and he put it into the Daily Gazette, his own magazine. And one of his most famous things, I think, was debating with Thomas Jefferson and criticizing him openly. And he's basically saying that, you wrote the Declaration of Independence, yet you own slaves. And he's talking about that kind of hypocrisy. So that really shows a lot about his character. But overall, his main ideas were that through tech, through Black intellect, we can carve things out on our own terms, and we can really just show people what we're about.
Thomas Jefferson. So, the 1970s were the birth of actual Afrofuturism, which is Black power and nationalist movement. So, basically what happened, obviously, as we know, is that many were very disillusioned with the civil rights movement and, the fact that they weren't addressing actual inequalities that were happening in their communities. And because of that, there's a lot of emphasis on Black creative output and reclaiming their own heritage, even under a white dominant system. So some prominent source materials, I'll mention the first one, is basically a poster for the first Afrofuturism movie. It's created by Sun Ra. He is a jazz pianist and composer, and he's known as the founder of Afrofuturism. So let me kind of explain. So this movie is basically imagining Sun Ra, or he's basically a musicianist or whatever, and imagining them moving to another distant planet. He's taking African Americans to another planet so they can escape oppression in their own society. And this is very this is probably the first idea of such a thing, and I think it really inspired.
And when it came to Sun Ra, there were a few notable things about him. So he's a American jazz composer, a piano and synthesizer player, and poet known for his experimental music. And a really interesting fact about him is that he claims he's from Saturn, but it's not meant to be taken literally. As in, he says he's from Saturn in a symbolic gesture to show that he wants to be in a society that doesn't actively oppress him, and that, like, screw the society that's putting me down. I'm part of Saturn. Like, I can be like part of like another planet that doesn't actively put me down, and I can carve my own future.
Source material I also saw was basically a Star Trek episode with Nichelle Nicholas as Uhura. I don't watch Star Trek. I don't know what the in the show, at least, she's portrayed as very intelligent, as someone who's like a space fleet commander or whatever, and her being seen as like a leader for like a spacefaring kind of show is also directly contributes to Afrofuturism, as in it shows that black people have the agency to go beyond their own means, to go beyond the stars and develop and prosper. So, African American Studies, I'm pretty sure we know what this is, but let's just go over it again. Basically, African American Studies centers the experience of black people in the black diaspora. It's very similar to Afrofuturism in that we should define our own people on our own terms. It's interdisciplinary in that it connects history, culture, literature, philosophy, art, etc. And the reason we do that is because oppression can't just be seen in one aspect. It must be examined through multiple lenses, and the difference between that and other scholarly studies is that activists and the average civilian demanded it versus, some white scholar who, talks about, I don't know, Plato or something.
And as for key themes, we have racial inequities that have occurred over time, cultural resilience, migration, so, the black diaspora where it's moved, and current influence, so we can think of it as how the system has kind of carried over to even today. So, guys, in summary, we have this. So, black people are builders, creators, and artists. They can innovate and design on their own terms, and they have the innovation to do that. Afrofuturism imagines a world, as well as black studies, where black people are no longer bound by the system of oppression, and we can actually look through it through a more holistic lens and nuanced lens. And, the Black Panther movie was not great, but, or the second one, but I digress.